The envelope sat on the kitchen counter like a coiled snake, white and crisp against the marble surface. Natasha stared at it, her hands trembling as she held her phone to her ear, barely listening to her lawyer's voice on the other end. Natasha, are you there? This is incredible news. The government contract is yours. $850 million over 5 years. Your company just became one of the major players in tech consulting. She should have been screaming with joy. She should have been calling everyone she knew. Instead, she was staring at divorce papers that had been waiting for her when she walked through the door 15 minutes ago. I need to call you back, she whispered, ending the call before her lawyer could respond. The letter next to the envelope was worse than the legal documents. She recognized Brandon's handwriting immediately, that slanted script she used to find charming. Natasha, I can't do this anymore. You're always working, always stressed, always focused on a business that's going nowhere. The girls are sick, we're drowning in medical bills, and I need someone who can actually be a partner. Simone understands me in ways you never could. She sees my potential. I'm sorry, but I'm done. My lawyer will contact you about custody. I think it's best if I have minimal involvement given the circumstances. Brandon. Natasha read it 3 times before the words actually penetrated. He was leaving. He was leaving her for Simone. His boss. The woman who ran the marketing firm where he worked as a senior account manager. He was leaving her and their 7-year-old twin daughters, Zara and Nina, who both had congenital heart defects that required expensive treatments and upcoming surgeries. She walked slowly to the living room and sat on the couch, the papers clutched in her hand. The house was quiet. Her mother had picked up the girls from school and taken them to their cardiology appointment. Natasha had rushed home from her meeting in Washington, eager to share her incredible news with Brandon, to tell him that everything was about to change, that all her hard work had finally paid off. The contract would change everything. The advance payment alone would cover the girls' surgeries, the medical bills, the mortgage, everything they'd been struggling with for the past 2 years since the diagnosis. She'd built her tech consulting firm from nothing, working 70-hour weeks, pitching to every potential client, slowly building a reputation. And now, the biggest win of her career had finally come through. But Brandon was gone. Her phone buzzed. A text from a number she didn't recognize. She opened it and felt her stomach drop. Hi Natasha. This is Simone. I'm sorry you had to find out this way. Brandon and I have been seeing each other for 8 months. He's moving in with me tonight. I hope we can all be mature about this. The girls can visit once things settle down. Take care. 8 months. Brandon had been cheating on her for 8 months while she nursed their sick daughters, worked around the clock to save her business, and tried to hold their family together. Natasha set the phone down carefully, afraid that if she held it any longer she might throw it across the room. She couldn't afford to break things. She couldn't afford to fall apart. Not when Zara and Nina needed her. The front door opened and she heard her mother's voice, bright and cheerful. Natasha? We're home. The doctor said the girls' numbers look better this month. She stood up quickly, shoving the papers under a couch cushion. She wiped her face, painted on a smile, and walked into the hallway where her daughters were taking off their shoes. Mommy, Zara called out, her brown eyes lighting up. Both girls had her complexion, her thick curly hair, her smile. They looked so much like her that strangers often didn't realize Brandon was their father. Hey babies. She knelt down and hugged them both, breathing in their scent, feeling their small hearts beating against her chest. How was the doctor? He said we're doing good, Nina reported, her voice serious. At 7 she was the more thoughtful twin, always analyzing everything. He said we're strong. You are strong, Natasha agreed, her voice catching slightly. You're the strongest girls I know. Her mother, Diane, watched her carefully. At 62, she had raised Natasha alone after her father left when she was 5. She knew the look of fresh heartbreak when she saw it. Girls, go wash your hands and get your homework started, Diane said gently. I need to talk to your mama for a minute. Once the twins were upstairs, Diane turned to Natasha. What happened? Natasha pulled out the papers and handed them to her mother without a word. Diane read them slowly, her jaw tightening with each line. When she finished, she looked up at Natasha with fury in her eyes. He's leaving? No. When the girls need surgery in 3 months. He's been having an affair with his boss. He says he can't handle the stress anymore. The stress, Diane repeated, her voice flat. The stress of watching his own children fight for their health. The stress of having a wife who works herself half to death to keep the family afloat while he does what, exactly? Natasha sank into a chair. Mom, I got the contract. The government contract I've been working on for 2 years. $850 million. Diane's eyes widened. What? I found out an hour ago. I came home to tell Brandon that everything was going to be okay, that we could afford the surgeries, that we could finally breathe. And instead, I found divorce papers. Her mother sat down slowly, processing this information. He doesn't know? No. Nobody knows except my lawyer and the people at the contracting office. It won't be public for another few weeks when all the paperwork is finalized. Good, Diane said firmly. Don't tell him. Don't tell anyone yet. Let him walk away thinking you're struggling. Let him think he's escaping a sinking ship. Mom, that's petty. No, baby. That's justice. He's abandoning his sick children because he thinks there's no money and no future. Let him find out what he gave up after it's too late. Diane reached across and took her daughter's hand. You're going to be fine. Better than fine. You're going to be amazing. And he's going to spend the rest of his life knowing he threw away everything for a woman who only wanted him when she thought he was worth something. Natasha wanted to argue, but she was too tired, too hurt, too overwhelmed by everything that had happened in the span of one afternoon. What do I tell the girls? The truth eventually, but not tonight. Tonight, you feed them dinner, help them with homework, and tuck them into bed like always. Tomorrow, you call your lawyer and make sure Brandon doesn't get a penny of what you've earned. And then you start building the life you and those girls deserve. Natasha nodded slowly, wiping away tears she hadn't realized were falling. Her mother was right. She couldn't fall apart. She had 2 daughters who needed her, a business that was about to explode, and a future to build. Brandon had made his choice. Now she would make hers. Later that night, after the girls were asleep, Natasha sat at her kitchen table with her laptop open. She drafted an email to her lawyer, outlining everything that had happened and requesting immediate action to protect her assets. The contract had been awarded to her personally and to her company, which she had founded before her marriage. Brandon's name was on nothing related to her business. She thought about the past 8 months, replaying conversations and moments in her mind. The late nights Brandon claimed he was working. The business trips that seemed to multiply. The way he'd grown distant and critical, always finding fault with everything she did. He'd been planning his exit while she was fighting to save their family. Her phone buzzed with another text from Brandon's number. I'll come by this weekend to get my things. It's better if the girls aren't there. I don't want to confuse them. She typed back quickly, take everything this week. I don't want you here when the girls are home. You can see them through your lawyer if you want custody or visitation. His response came immediately. Given their medical issues, I think it's best if you have full custody. I'll pay what I can for support, but honestly, I can't afford much right now. Natasha's hands shook with rage. He was already backing out of financial responsibility for his own children. Children who needed expensive surgery and ongoing care. My lawyer will be in touch, she typed back, then blocked his number. She sat in the quiet kitchen, surrounded by the life she'd built. Photos of the girls covered the refrigerator. Their artwork hung on the walls. This house, this home, she'd made it all while Brandon coasted through life, complaining about stress he never actually shouldered. Tomorrow would be painful. Next week would be harder. But eventually she would come out the other side of this. And when she did, she'd be stronger than ever. Brandon had left her thinking she had nothing. He had no idea that he'd just walked away from everything. The next 6 weeks passed in a blur of lawyer meetings, paperwork, and carefully maintained normalcy for the girls. Natasha had told Zara and Nina that their father had to move away for work, that he'd visit when he could. She hated lying to them, but she couldn't bring herself to say the words that would break their hearts. The truth would come eventually. But not yet. Not when they needed stability most. Brandon had come by on a Tuesday afternoon while the girls were at school. Natasha had arranged to be at her office, unable to stomach watching him pack up his life and walk away. Her mother had supervised, making sure he only took what was his and nothing more. He barely looked around, Diane reported later. Didn't ask about the girls, didn't leave them anything. Just loaded his car like he was moving out of a hotel room. Natasha had signed the divorce papers without contest, accepting his offer of zero involvement in exchange for zero financial support. Her lawyer had advised against it, but she wanted him gone completely. She didn't want his money, didn't want his half-hearted attempts at parenting, didn't want him anywhere near her daughters. The government contract remained her secret. Only her lawyer, her accountant, and her mother knew. The public announcement was still 2 weeks away, delayed by bureaucratic processing. She told her small team at work that she'd landed a major client but kept the details vague. Every night, she came home exhausted from working on the contract preparations while managing the girls' medical appointments and daily needs. Zara and Nina asked about their father less and less as the weeks passed. Children were resilient, but Natasha could see the confusion in their eyes when they looked at his empty chair at dinner. Her best friend Rochelle came by every few days, bringing food and moral support. They'd been friends since college and Rochelle had never liked Brandon. "I knew he was trash," Rochelle said one evening as they sat in Natasha's kitchen after the girls went to bed. "The way he always made everything about him. The way he acted like your business was a hobby instead of a career. I thought he'd change once things got better," Natasha admitted, staring into her tea. "I thought if I could just make the business successful enough, prove that I could provide for the family, he'd support me the way I supported him. Girl, men like that don't change. They just find new ways to take credit or new people to leech from." Rochelle shook her head. "And leaving his sick babies? I hope Simone knows what kind of man she got." Natasha had looked up Simone online, unable to stop herself despite knowing it would only hurt. Simone was 43, never married, ran a successful marketing agency. Her social media was full of posed photos at expensive restaurants and vacation destinations. She looked like someone who'd never sacrificed anything for anyone. "They deserve each other," Natasha said quietly. "They really do." Rochelle reached across and squeezed her hand. "You know what you deserve? You deserve to watch your business blow up, get your girls healthy, and live your best life while he realizes what an idiot he is." 2 weeks later, the press release went out. Natasha was at her office when her phone started ringing non-stop. Emails flooded her inbox. Her company's website crashed from traffic. The news was everywhere. Local tech consulting firm owned by single mother wins $850 million government contract. The reporter who'd picked up the story had done their research, highlighting Natasha's journey from a one-woman startup to landing one of the largest government contracts in the tech sector that year. They'd mentioned her daughter's illness, her recent divorce, her determination to succeed against all odds. By noon, she'd received interview requests from 3 major business magazines, 2 local news stations, and a national morning show. Her phone rang again. Her lawyer. "Natasha, congratulations are in order, but we have a problem. Brandon's lawyer just called. He's contesting the divorce settlement. He wants 50% of the business and the contract earnings." Natasha felt ice water flood her veins. "He can't. The contract was signed after we separated. The business was founded before we married. I know, and we'll fight this. But be prepared for this to get ugly." He clearly just found out about the contract and realized what he walked away from. After she hung up, Natasha sat very still at her desk. Through her office window she could see the city stretching out below. Her team was celebrating in the break room, excited about the massive project ahead and the jobs it secured for all of them. She'd worked so hard for this moment. And Brandon was trying to take it from her. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She knew before opening it that it was from him. "Natasha, I made a mistake. Can we talk? I miss the girls. I miss you. Maybe we moved too fast with the divorce." She stared at the message, feeling nothing but cold anger. He didn't miss them. He missed the money he thought he was entitled to. She blocked the number and called her lawyer back. "Fight him on everything. I don't care what it costs. He doesn't get to abandon his children and then come back when he smells money." "That's what I wanted to hear," her lawyer said. "We'll make this very clear. He signed away his rights. The contract is yours. Every penny of it." That evening, Natasha picked up the girls from her mother's house where they'd stayed after school. On the drive home, Nina spoke up from the back seat. "Mommy, kids at school said they saw you on TV. They said you're famous now." Natasha glanced in the rearview mirror. Both girls looked curious but not upset. "Not famous, baby. Just my company got a really big job. It means we're going to be okay. It means I can take care of you and Zara, and we'll be able to afford your surgeries without worrying." "Is that why Daddy left?" Zara asked quietly. "Because of the money for our hearts?" The question hit Natasha like a physical blow. She pulled the car over into a parking lot and turned to face her daughters. "No, sweethearts. Your father left because he made choices that had nothing to do with you. You two are perfect. You're loved. And nothing about you or your health made him leave. That was all about him, not about you." "But we cost a lot of money," Nina said, her 7-year-old face serious. "I heard Grandma talking about the bills." Natasha got out of the car, opened the back door, and hugged both her daughters tightly. "Listen to me. You are worth everything. Every doctor visit, every treatment, every single thing you need. I would give up everything for you, and I don't want you to ever think differently. Your father's choices are not your fault." That night, after the girls were asleep, Natasha sat alone in her living room thinking about the future. Brandon's attempt to claim part of her success had confirmed what she already knew. He was exactly who Rochelle had always said he was. A man who only valued what benefited him. But she wasn't going to let him take anything else from her. She'd already lost 2 years of peace to his criticism and dismissal of her dreams. She'd already suffered through his abandonment at the worst possible time. Now it was time to move forward. To build the life she and her daughters deserved. To show them that hard work and determination mattered more than any man's approval or presence. Brandon had thought he was escaping a sinking ship. Instead, he jumped off right before it became a luxury yacht. And she was going to make sure he watched from the shore as she sailed away. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, Natasha stood in the lobby of her new office building and smiled. The space was 4 times larger than her old office, with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture, and a team of 25 employees where she'd once had just 5. The government contract had transformed everything. Phase 1 was ahead of schedule, and she'd already received inquiries about additional projects. Her company, Novatech Solutions, was being featured in business journals as an example of minority-owned businesses succeeding in the tech sector. More importantly, her daughters were thriving. Their surgery had been 3 months ago, performed by the best pediatric cardiac surgeon on the East Coast. Both girls had recovered beautifully, their energy levels increasing weekly. They were back in school full-time, playing soccer on the weekends, living like normal 7-year-olds instead of sick children. Natasha had moved them into a new house in a better school district, a beautiful 4-bedroom with a big backyard where the girls could run and play. She'd hired a part-time nanny to help with after-school care when work ran late, though she made it home for dinner every single night. Her mother had retired from her job at the post office and now spent her days volunteering and spoiling her granddaughters. Diane's only regret was that Brandon wasn't around to see what he'd given up. The team from the Department of Defense is here for the review meeting, her assistant, Jerome, announced from her office doorway. He was a recent college graduate, sharp and organized, exactly what she needed as her company expanded. Thanks. Let them know I'll be right there. The meeting went smoothly. The government representatives were impressed with the progress, the innovation her team had brought to the project, and the cost efficiency they'd maintained. By the end, they were discussing expansion possibilities that would add another $300 million to the contract value. After they left, Natasha checked her phone and saw a text from Rochelle. Lunch tomorrow? I have gossip. They met the next day at a small cafe near Natasha's office. Rochelle was practically bouncing in her seat when Natasha arrived. Okay, spill, Natasha said, sliding into the booth. What's got you so excited? You know my cousin Terrence? He works at Simone's marketing firm. Natasha's smile faded slightly. She'd successfully avoided thinking about Brandon and Simone for months now. What about it? The company is in trouble. Like serious financial trouble. They lost 3 major clients in the past 4 months, and word is they might have to file for bankruptcy. And guess who got fired 2 weeks ago for not bringing in enough new business? Brandon. Brandon, Rochelle confirmed, grinning. Terrence said he showed up to work one day and his access card didn't work. Security had to escort him out. Apparently, Simone told everyone it was performance-related, but really she just didn't need him anymore once she realized he was useless. Natasha should have felt satisfaction. Instead she felt nothing. Brandon was part of a life she'd moved beyond. How did he look? She asked, curiosity getting the better of her. Terrence said he looked rough. Lost weight, needs a haircut, wearing the same suit he's had for 3 years. And get this, Rochelle leaned forward, he's been trying to get hired at other firms but nobody wants him. Apparently, leaving your sick kids for your boss doesn't look great on a resume, especially when everyone in the industry knows the story. How does everyone know? Girl, you were on the news. Reporters covered the whole thing. Single mother overcomes adversity, wins huge contract, meanwhile her ex-husband abandoned her and their sick twins. It wasn't hard for people to connect the dots and figure out who he was. Natasha sipped her water, processing this. She'd been so focused on moving forward that she hadn't considered how Brandon's actions would follow him professionally. I hope he's okay, she said finally, meaning it. Not because she cared about him anymore, but because she didn't want to be the kind of person who took joy in anyone's suffering. You're a better person than me, Rochelle said. I hope he's miserable and realizes every single day what an idiot he is. That evening, Natasha picked up Zara and Nina from soccer practice. They chattered excitedly about their game, about their friends, about the pizza they wanted for dinner. They asked about their father less and less these days, settling into their new normal with surprising ease. As she tucked them into bed that night, Zara looked up at her with serious eyes. "Mommy, do you think Daddy still loves us?" The question pierced her heart. "I think your father loves you in the way he knows how, which isn't the way you deserve. But I love you enough for two parents, and you have Grandma, Auntie Rochelle, and so many people who think you're the most amazing kids in the world." "It's okay," Nina said from her bed across the room. "We have you. That's better." After they fell asleep, Natasha went to her home office and reviewed financial reports, project timelines, and expansion plans. Her business was growing faster than she'd ever imagined. She had opportunities she'd only dreamed about a year ago. Brandon had left her thinking she was failing. He'd walked away believing she'd never amount to anything, that her business was a lost cause, that she was too focused on work to be a good partner. He'd been wrong about everything. The next morning, her lawyer called with news. Brandon's attorney withdrew his claim to the business and contract earnings. Apparently, they realized they had no legal standing and Brandon couldn't afford to keep fighting. Did he say anything else? Just that Brandon wanted to arrange to see the girls. Natasha thought about this carefully. Despite everything, Zara and Nina deserved to know their father if he was genuinely interested in being part of their lives. Tell him he can see them supervised at a neutral location. 1 hour once a month to start. If he's consistent and the girls are comfortable, we can discuss more. Are you sure about this? No, Natasha admitted. But I won't keep them from him if he's actually going to show up and be a father. I just won't let him hurt them again. The visit never happened. Brandon's lawyer called 2 days later to say that Brandon felt supervised visits were too restrictive and he'd rather wait until the girls were older and could decide for themselves if they wanted a relationship with him. Translation: he didn't want to be a father if it came with rules and accountability. Natasha hung up the phone and stared out her office window at the city below. She'd given him a chance. He'd rejected it. That was on him, not her. Her phone rang again. This time it was a number she didn't recognize, but she answered anyway. "Ms. Richardson? This is Dr. Leonard Hayes from Children's Memorial Hospital. I was the cardiac surgeon for your daughters." "Dr. Hayes, hello. Is everything okay? Are the girls due for a checkup?" "Yes, they have appointments next month, but I'm actually calling about something else. I'm organizing a charity gala to raise money for pediatric cardiac research, and I was hoping you might be willing to be one of our speakers. Your story is inspiring and I think it would really resonate with potential donors." Natasha considered this. Public speaking wasn't her favorite activity, but if it could help other families dealing with what she'd been through, it was worth it. "I'd be honored," she said. "Send me the details." As she hung up, she realized something important. She was building more than just a business. She was building a legacy. A life that mattered. A future that her daughters could be proud of. And Brandon had chosen to miss all of it. The charity gala was held at the city's most prestigious hotel, a glittering affair attended by doctors, philanthropists, business leaders, and local celebrities. Natasha had bought a new dress for the occasion, a stunning emerald green that complemented her skin tone perfectly. Her mother had insisted on coming along for support, and Rochelle had volunteered to stay home with the girls. "You look beautiful," Diane said as they entered the ballroom. Like success personified. Dr. Hayes greeted them warmly, a tall man in his early 40s with kind eyes and an easy smile. "Ms. Richardson, thank you so much for coming. Your girls are doing wonderfully, by the way. Their last scans showed perfect healing." "Thank you for everything you did for them," Natasha said sincerely. "You gave them their lives back. That's what I love about my job. And tonight, we're hoping to give that same gift to hundreds more children." He guided her toward the stage area. "You'll speak after dinner, just share your experience. Nothing too formal. People respond to authenticity." The evening progressed smoothly. Natasha mingled with guests, surprised by how many people recognized her from the news coverage of her contract win. Business cards piled up in her small clutch as potential clients introduced themselves. A local news crew was covering the event for their evening broadcast. When they asked to interview her about her company's success and her daughter's recovery, she agreed. "Tell us," the reporter asked, "how did you manage to build a multi-million-dollar business while dealing with your daughter's health crisis and a divorce?" Natasha chose her words carefully. "You do what you have to do when your children need you. My daughters needed medical care that I had to provide. My business needed attention if it was going to survive. So I worked. I pushed. I refused to give up because giving up wasn't an option. Your ex-husband left shortly before you won the government contract. Does he have any involvement with the children now? My daughters and I have an amazing support system. My mother, my friends, my team at work. We're building a beautiful life together." The reporter smiled, recognizing a diplomatic non-answer. And what's next for Novatech Solutions? We're expanding internationally. I've just signed partnerships with firms in 3 countries to work on global cybersecurity initiatives. The government contract was the beginning, not the destination. When it was time for her speech, Natasha walked onto the stage with steady hands and a clear voice. She told the story of her daughter's diagnosis, the fear she'd felt, the financial pressure, the uncertainty. She spoke about the day Dr. Hayes had told her the surgery was successful, how she'd cried in the hospital hallway with relief. Every child deserves access to the kind of care my daughters received, she concluded. Every parent deserves to hear that their child is going to be okay. That's why this research matters. That's why we're all here tonight. To give families hope. The applause was overwhelming. As she left the stage, several people approached her with donation pledges and words of support. Dr. Hayes found her later near the dessert table. That was perfect. I've already had 3 people commit to major donations because of your story. I'm glad I could help. I hope this isn't too forward, he said, looking slightly nervous, but would you like to have coffee sometime? To discuss the foundation work, of course. Maybe brainstorm other ways we could partner to help families. Natasha looked at him carefully. He seemed genuine, his interest in the cause clearly authentic. Coffee would be nice. For foundation talk. They exchanged numbers and she felt a small flutter of something she hadn't felt in a long time. Not attraction exactly. Just the possibility of connection with someone who seemed to actually see her, not just what she could provide. The news broadcast aired at 11 that night. Natasha was already home, having tucked the girls into bed and changed into comfortable clothes. Her mother called immediately. Turn on channel 7. You're on. Natasha switched on the television and saw herself being interviewed, looking confident and composed. The segment included footage from her speech and background on her company's success. The reporter's narration was glowing. Local tech entrepreneur overcomes personal tragedy to become one of the city's most successful business leaders. Her phone started buzzing with texts from friends and colleagues who'd seen the broadcast. She was responding to messages when an unknown number called. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. Hello. Heavy breathing on the other end. Then, it's me, Brandon. She'd recognize his voice anywhere. How did you get this number? I saw you on TV. The news story. The gala. His voice was strained. $850 million, Natasha? You won that contract the day I left you, didn't you? She said nothing, letting the silence stretch. Do you know what my life has been like? He continued, his voice rising. I lost my job. Simone kicked me out. Everyone in the industry knows what I did and nobody will hire me. I'm living in a studio apartment working at a call center, and you're on television talking about international expansion. What do you want, Brandon? I want to know how you could keep that from me. I want to know how you could let me walk away without telling me. Natasha laughed, a sharp sound without humor. You want to know how I could keep it from you? You left me divorce papers and a note saying I was going nowhere. You abandoned your sick daughters because you didn't want to deal with the stress. You moved in with another woman the same day. And you think I owed you information about my business? We were still married when you got that contract. We were separated. You'd already filed for divorce. You'd already made it clear you wanted nothing to do with me or the girls. The contract was awarded to my company, which I built alone, which you always said would fail. You don't get to claim any part of it now. I made a mistake. Yes, you did. You made a lot of them. Can we meet? Talk about this? Maybe we could work something out. Work what out, Brandon? You don't want to be a father. You don't want to be my partner. You want access to money that isn't yours. The answer is no. You're being vindictive. I'm being smart. Something I should have been years ago. She kept her voice steady, controlled. Don't call this number again. If you want to discuss seeing the girls, you can go through your lawyer who already knows my terms. Otherwise, we have nothing to talk about. Natasha, please. I'm sorry. I really am. I miss you. I miss the girls. You miss the life you thought you were too good for. You miss the idea of having access to success you didn't earn. But you don't miss us. If you did, you wouldn't have left in the first place. She paused. Goodbye, Brandon. She hung up and immediately blocked the number. Her hands were shaking, but not from sadness or regret. From anger. From the sheer audacity of him thinking he could call her now and somehow be welcomed back. Her mother appeared in the doorway, having heard the whole conversation. That was him. Yes. What did he want? What they always want when women start succeeding without them. He wants back in. Diane sat down next to her daughter on the couch. You handled that perfectly. I'm proud of you. I should feel worse, Natasha admitted. Hearing him like that, knowing he's struggling. I should feel something. You feel exactly what you should. Nothing. He made his choices. He lives with them. You're not responsible for his happiness or his success or his regret. Natasha leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. The girls asked about him again yesterday. Zara wanted to know if he'd come to her soccer game. What did you tell her? That he loves them but he's dealing with grown-up problems right now. I don't want them to hate him, Mom. But I also don't want them to think his absence is their fault. They'll understand someday. When they're older, they'll see what kind of man he is and what kind of woman you are. They'll understand that you fought for them when he walked away. That night, Natasha lay in bed thinking about the path her life had taken. A year ago, she'd been drowning. Sick children, failing marriage, business stress, financial pressure. She'd felt like she was holding up the sky with her bare hands and her arms were giving out. Now her daughters were healthy. Her business was thriving beyond her wildest dreams. She had opportunities that scared and excited her in equal measure. Brandon's phone call had been his last attempt to claw his way back into her life. She'd shut that door firmly. Not out of cruelty but out of self-preservation. She'd learned the hard lesson that some people only value you when they think you need them. When you prove you don't, they try to convince you that you do. But she didn't need Brandon. She never really had. And now, finally, she was free to build the life she'd always deserved. 3 months after the gala, Natasha's life had settled into a new rhythm. Her company had opened a second office to handle the increased workload. She'd hired more staff, promoted several loyal employees, and established Novatech Solutions as a serious player in the tech consulting space. The international partnerships were exceeding expectations. She'd just returned from a week in London meeting with potential clients, and her calendar was booked solid with meetings for the next 2 months. More importantly, Zara and Nina were completely healthy. Their last cardiac checkup had shown no issues at all. They were thriving in school, popular with their classmates, and showing no lasting effects from their early health struggles. Mommy, can we get a dog? Nina asked one Saturday morning over breakfast. Natasha looked up from her coffee. A dog. All our friends have dogs, Zara added. And we have a big backyard now. We could take care of it. Let me think about it, Natasha said, but she was already imagining a puppy running around with the girls. Why not? They deserved every bit of joy she could give them. Her phone rang. It was Rochelle. Turn on channel 4. Now. Natasha grabbed the remote and switched on the television. A business news segment was running a story about local companies facing bankruptcy. And there, among the images, was Simone's marketing firm. Simone Martin's once thriving agency has filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection, the anchor announced. Sources say the company lost several major clients after allegations of financial mismanagement and poor business practices. Martin herself is facing potential lawsuits from former clients who claim they were overcharged for services. The camera showed footage of Simone leaving a courthouse, her face hidden behind large sunglasses. She looked nothing like the polished woman from the photos Natasha had seen online. Her clothes were rumpled, her hair hastily pulled back. The company's collapse has affected dozens of employees who are now seeking new positions in a difficult market, the anchor continued before moving on to the next story. Natasha muted the television and called Rochelle back. Did you know about this? Terrence told me things were bad, but I didn't know it was bankruptcy bad. Apparently, she'd been using client funds to support her personal lifestyle. When the big clients left, the whole house of cards fell down. What about Brandon? Girl, he's long gone. Simone kicked him out months ago. Word is he's been couch surfing trying to find any job that will take him. He applied at my company last week for an entry-level position. My boss laughed him out of the interview when she realized who he was. Natasha should have felt vindicated. Instead, she just felt tired. I hope he figures his life out. You're too nice. After what he did to you and those babies. I'm not nice. I'm just done carrying anger about him. He's not worth the energy. That afternoon, Dr. Hayes called to check on the girls and asked if she'd be interested in serving on the board of the Pediatric Cardiac Research Foundation. They'd been talking regularly since the gala, mostly about foundation work, though their conversations had gradually become more personal. I'd be honored, she told him. What does it involve? Quarterly meetings, fundraising events, strategic planning. And maybe dinner sometime to discuss it all? Natasha smiled. Leonard was kind, patient, and genuinely interested in making a difference. Their friendship had grown slowly, naturally, without pressure. Dinner sounds nice. How about next Friday? There's a great place downtown. Italian food, quiet atmosphere, good for conversation. It's a date, she said, then paused. I mean, not a date. Just dinner. His laugh was warm. I know what you meant. Though honestly, I wouldn't mind if it was a date. You're remarkable, Natasha. After they hung up, she sat thinking about the possibility of dating again. It had been a year since Brandon left, and she'd been so focused on work and the girls that romance hadn't even crossed her mind. But Leonard was different. He'd seen her daughters at their most vulnerable and had treated them with such gentleness. He'd saved their lives. And he seemed to genuinely admire her strength rather than feel threatened by it. Maybe it was time to open that door a little bit. The following Tuesday, Natasha was in her office when Jerome knocked on her door. There's someone here to see you. No appointment. Says he's your ex-husband. Natasha's stomach tightened. Tell security to remove him. I tried. He's insisting he just needs 5 minutes. He's causing a scene in the lobby. She stood up, anger flooding through her. Call the police if he doesn't leave immediately. I have nothing to say to him. Jerome left, and Natasha watched from her office window as security guards escorted Brandon out of the building 10 minutes later. He was yelling something she couldn't hear, gesturing wildly. Her phone rang. It was the building's security manager. Ms. Richardson, we've removed him from the premises. Should we file a trespassing report? Yes. And add him to the ban list. He's not to be allowed in this building for any reason. That evening, she got home to find her mother looking worried. Brandon came by here today. The girls were at school, thank God. I told him to leave and he started crying on the porch. Crying? Full breakdown. Saying he made mistakes, he wants his family back, he has nothing left. I almost felt sorry for him until I remembered what he did. Natasha sank into a chair. He needs help, Mom. Professional help. But I can't be the one to give it to him. He asked if he could see the girls. What did you tell him? That he needed to go through the proper channels and stop showing up places he wasn't wanted. Diane sat down across from her. He's desperate, Natasha. Desperate people do unpredictable things. I'll talk to my lawyer tomorrow about getting a restraining order if necessary. That night, after the girls were asleep, Natasha checked her social media and immediately wished she hadn't. Brandon had posted a long, rambling message on his profile. Sometimes you don't know what you have until it's gone. I lost everything because I was stupid and selfish. I lost the best woman I ever knew and 2 beautiful daughters. If you're reading this, Natasha, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. The comments were brutal. People she didn't even know were calling him out, telling him he deserved everything he got, that apologizing on social media was pathetic. She blocked him there too and closed her laptop. His public breakdown wasn't her responsibility. His regret, his struggles, his realization of what he'd thrown away, none of it was her problem to solve. She'd given him a chance to be a father months ago. He'd rejected it because the terms weren't to his liking. She'd offered grace and he'd chosen pride. Now he was reaping the consequences of every selfish choice he'd made, and she refused to feel guilty about that. Her phone buzzed with a text from Leonard, looking forward to Friday. I promise I'm a better cook than surgeon, so if dinner is terrible, at least you know I'm good at something. She smiled and typed back, I'm sure it will be perfect. And for the first time in a long time she felt hope. Not just for her business or her daughter's health, but for herself. For the possibility of happiness with someone who saw her value, who appreciated her strength, who wanted to add to her life instead of taking from it. Brandon had thought leaving her would be his escape to something better. Instead, he'd walked away from everything good in his life. That was his tragedy to live with, not hers. Friday evening arrived with clear skies and warm temperatures. Natasha changed outfits 3 times before settling on a royal blue dress that was elegant without being too formal. Her mother had agreed to stay with the girls, and Rochelle had called earlier to give her a pep talk. Just relax and be yourself, Rochelle had said. Leonard already likes you. This is just making it official. The restaurant Leonard had chosen was perfect. Intimate without being stuffy, with soft lighting and quiet jazz playing in the background. He was already there when she arrived, standing to greet her with a genuine smile. You look beautiful, he said simply. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. Over dinner they talked about everything. His work at the hospital, her company's expansion, their shared love of old movies, their different opinions on whether pizza was a breakfast food. He said yes, she said absolutely not. Tell me about your daughters, he said over dessert. Beyond their medical charts. What are they like? Natasha's face lit up. Zara is fearless. She'll try anything once, never meets a stranger, wants to be a veterinarian or a superhero, she hasn't decided which. Nina is thoughtful, always thinking 3 steps ahead. She reads everything, questions everything, keeps her sister out of trouble most of the time. They sound amazing. They are. They're the reason I fought so hard to build the business. I wanted them to see that you can overcome anything if you're willing to work for it. Leonard nodded slowly. I see a lot of sick kids in my job. And I see a lot of parents. Some fall apart under the pressure. Others, like you, become stronger. It's remarkable what love can make people capable of. You saved their lives, Natasha said quietly. I'll never be able to thank you enough for that. I'm good at my job, but you're the one who got them through it. You're the one who made sure they had hope and stability and normalcy even when you were terrified. They talked until the restaurant started to close, the conversation flowing easily without awkward pauses or forced topics. When Leonard walked her to her car, he hesitated before speaking. I'd really like to see you again. And I want to be clear, I'm not looking for casual. I like you, Natasha. I admire you. And I think there could be something real here if you're open to it. She looked at him, this kind man who'd been patient and genuine, who'd never pushed or demanded but simply shown up consistently. I'm open to it, but I need to go slow. My daughters have to be my priority and they've been through a lot. I understand. And I respect that. How about this, next time something simple? A walk in the park. Coffee. Something where we can just enjoy each other's company without pressure. That sounds perfect. Over the next few months, Leonard became a regular part of their lives. He came to Zara's soccer games and Nina's school presentations. He brought books he thought the girls would like and never tried to replace their father, but simply offered friendship and support. The girls adored him. Not because he tried too hard or bought their affection, but because he listened when they talked, remembered what they told him, and treated them like people rather than obstacles. One evening, about 5 months into their relationship, Leonard came over for dinner. After the girls went upstairs to do homework, he and Natasha sat in the living room talking. There's something I need to tell you, Natasha said. Brandon has been trying to contact the girls through their school. He showed up at a soccer practice last week. Leonard's expression grew serious. What happened? The coach recognized him from photos I'd provided and didn't let him approach. But Zara saw him from a distance. She asked me about it later. What did you tell her? The truth. That her father is trying to be involved now, but that he has to follow certain rules to keep everyone safe. She asked if she had to see him if she didn't want to, and I told her no. She never has to see anyone who makes her uncomfortable. And what does she want? She said maybe someday but not now. Nina was more direct. She said she doesn't need a father who only shows up when it's convenient for him. Leonard reached over and took her hand. You've raised strong, smart girls. They've had to be strong. I hate that they had to learn these lessons so young. But look at what they've learned. That they're valuable, that their mother will always fight for them, that love means showing up even when it's hard. Those are good lessons. Natasha leaned her head on his shoulder. How did I get so lucky to find you? I think I'm the lucky one. Meanwhile, Brandon's situation continued to deteriorate. Through Rochelle's cousin, Natasha heard that he'd moved to another city, trying to escape the reputation that followed him. He'd found work at a small company doing basic sales, making a fraction of what he used to earn. Simone, according to reports, was facing multiple lawsuits and had moved back in with her parents while trying to rebuild her life. Her social media presence had disappeared entirely. Natasha felt no satisfaction in their struggles. She simply felt relief that they were far away from her family. Her business, meanwhile, continued to flourish. She'd just been approached about speaking at a major tech conference. A business magazine wanted to feature her on their cover. She'd been invited to join a consortium of tech leaders advising the government on cybersecurity policy. Everything she'd worked for was coming together. One Saturday evening, after the girls were in bed, Leonard stayed late to help Natasha prepare for her conference presentation. As they worked, he suddenly set down the papers he was reviewing and looked at her seriously. I love you, he said quietly. I've loved you for a while now, but I wanted to make sure this was real before I said it. It's real, Natasha. You and those girls, you're everything I didn't know I was missing. Natasha felt tears spring to her eyes. I love you too. I didn't think I'd ever feel this way again. I didn't think I'd ever trust anyone enough. You can trust me. I'm not going anywhere. He pulled her close and she let herself relax into his arms. For so long she'd carried everything alone, convinced that depending on anyone would make her weak. But Leonard had shown her that partnership didn't mean losing herself. It meant having someone to share the weight with. The next morning, over breakfast, Nina looked at Leonard thoughtfully. Are you going to marry our mom? Leonard nearly choked on his coffee. Natasha froze, unsure how to respond. Nina, she started, but Leonard held up a hand. That's a fair question, he said to Nina. Your mom is pretty amazing. Any man would be lucky to marry her. But that's a decision we'd make together when the time is right. And we'd definitely talk to you and Zara first because you two are the most important people in her life. Zara piped up, I think you should marry her. You're nice and you don't yell and you remember that I like grape juice instead of apple juice. Everyone laughed, the tension breaking. But Natasha saw Leonard's expression and knew he was thinking about what Nina had asked. Knew that he was imagining a future with all of them together. And for the first time she let herself imagine it too. A life where she didn't have to be strong alone. Where her daughters had a male role model who actually showed up. Where partnership meant adding to each other's lives instead of taking away. Brandon had taught her what she didn't want. Leonard was showing her what she deserved. And the difference between the two was as vast as the ocean. 8 months after Leonard entered their lives, Natasha arrived at her office one Monday morning to find security waiting for her in the lobby. Ms. Richardson, we need to inform you of an incident, the head of security said grimly. A man matching your ex-husband's description was found sleeping in his car in the parking garage overnight. When we approached him this morning, he became agitated and said he needed to talk to you. Natasha felt cold all over. Where is he now? We escorted him off the property and told him we'd call the police if he returned. But I wanted you to know. She thanked them and went up to her office, immediately calling her lawyer. Brandon was sleeping in my office parking garage. That's stalking behavior. We need to file for a restraining order immediately. I was trying to avoid that. I didn't want to escalate things. Natasha, he's escalating things. You need legal protection. By that afternoon, emergency protective orders were in place. Brandon was legally prohibited from coming within 500 feet of Natasha, the girls, their school, or Natasha's workplace. That evening, Leonard came over as planned for dinner. Natasha told him what had happened, and his expression grew serious. You need to take this seriously. I've seen situations like this at the hospital, victims of stalking who didn't take it seriously until it was too late. I am taking it seriously. I have protection orders. I've informed the school and my office building. What else can I do? You can let me help. I can be here more, make sure you and the girls are safe. Natasha wanted to argue that she could handle it herself, but the truth was she was scared. Brandon's behavior was becoming unpredictable, and she had her daughters to think about. Okay, she said quietly. Thank you. Over the next few weeks, Brandon seemed to be everywhere. Not close enough to violate the restraining order, but always just visible. Natasha would see him across the street from her office. Parked down the block from her house. Standing at the edge of the soccer field during the girls' games. Each time she called the police. Each time he'd leave before they arrived. Her lawyer told her they were building a case for harassment, but they needed more concrete evidence. He's being careful not to technically violate the order, but his behavior is clearly intended to intimidate you. Then Natasha received a letter. It had been sent to her business address, marked personal and confidential. Inside was a handwritten note. Natasha, I know you hate me. I know I don't deserve anything from you. But I'm drowning here. I lost everything. I can't find work, I'm living in my car most nights, I have nothing. You have everything now. Can't you find it in your heart to help me? For the sake of what we once had? For the girls? I'm their father. They need to know I'm not a complete failure. Please, just talk to me. Brandon. She read it twice, feeling a complicated mix of emotions. Pity, anger, disgust, fear. She showed it to Leonard that evening. He read it and shook his head. This is manipulation. He's trying to make you feel responsible for his choices. Part of me does feel responsible. What if I had told him about the contract before he left? What if things would have been different? Listen to me, Leonard said firmly, taking her hands. You are not responsible for his choices. He left you and your sick children for another woman. He refused to be a father when given the chance. He's been stalking you and your family. His situation is the result of his own actions, not yours. I know that logically. But emotionally, you're a kind person who doesn't want to see anyone suffer. That's one of the things I love about you. But Brandon is counting on that kindness to manipulate you. Don't let him. Natasha knew Leonard was right. She gave the letter to her lawyer as evidence and tried to put it out of her mind. But Brandon wasn't done. A week later, he somehow got through to her office phone line when Jerome was at lunch. Natasha, please don't hang up. She should have disconnected immediately. Instead, she found herself responding. How did you get this number? I called saying I was a potential client. They transferred me. I just need 5 minutes. Please. You violated the restraining order by calling me. I'm desperate. Don't you understand? I have nothing. Meanwhile, you're dating some doctor, living in a mansion, running $1 million company. I'm hanging up now. Wait. The girls? I just want to see my daughters. That's all I'm asking. One visit. Supervised, whatever you want. I just need to see them. Natasha took a breath. You were offered supervised visitation 8 months ago. You rejected it because you didn't like the terms. You don't get to change your mind now that your life isn't going well. I made a mistake. You made dozens of mistakes. And now you're making more by harassing me. Lose this number. Don't call again. Any further contact will result in your arrest. She hung up and immediately informed her lawyer and the police. They assured her they'd increase patrols near her home and office. That evening she sat down with Zara and Nina. They needed to know what was happening in age-appropriate terms. Girls, I need to talk to you about your father. Both girls looked up from their homework, expressions guarded. He's been trying to come around lately, Natasha continued. Not because he suddenly decided to be a good dad, but because he's having problems in his life and thinks being around us will help him. We don't want to see him, Nina said flatly. I know, and you don't have to. But I need you both to understand some rules. If you ever see him at school or at soccer or anywhere, you tell a trusted adult immediately. You don't talk to him, you don't go near him. Do you understand? Is he dangerous? Zara asked, her eyes wide. No, baby. But he's not making good choices right now, and I need to keep you safe. After they went to bed, Leonard held Natasha while she cried tears of frustration and exhaustion. I just want him to go away. I want to live my life without looking over my shoulder. We'll get through this. And eventually he'll either get help or he'll give up. Either way, you're not alone in this. 2 days later, Brandon sent an email that got past her spam filter. The subject line read, I'm sorry for everything. Against her better judgment, she opened it. Natasha, this is my last message to you. I know I've caused you pain and fear, and that wasn't my intention. I just wanted you to understand how much I've lost, how much I regret. You were right about everything. I was selfish. I was cruel. I abandoned our daughters when they needed me most. I left you when you deserved support. And now I'm paying for it every single day. You've moved on. You have someone new, someone better than I ever was. The girls are healthy and happy. You don't need me and you never will. I'm going to leave town. Start over somewhere else where nobody knows what I did. I hope someday the girls will forgive me, but I understand if they don't. I hope you find all the happiness you deserve. You earned it, Brandon. Natasha read it once, then forwarded it to her lawyer without responding. She felt nothing. No relief, no sadness, no anger. Just emptiness where Brandon used to occupy space in her mind. Is it over? Leonard asked when she told him about the email. I hope so. But I'm not letting my guard down yet. 3 weeks passed without any sign of Brandon. The police confirmed he'd left the state, his car spotted heading west on the interstate. Rochelle's cousin reported that someone had seen him applying for jobs in Nevada. Slowly, Natasha allowed herself to relax. To believe that maybe, finally, Brandon had actually let go. And as the fear faded, she realized something important. She was stronger now than she'd ever been. Not because of what Brandon had done to her, but because of what she'd done for herself and her daughters in spite of him. She'd built an empire from nothing. She'd saved her children's lives. She'd found love again with someone who valued her. Brandon's desperation had been his final attempt to pull her back into his chaos. And she'd refused. That refusal, that firm boundary, was perhaps her greatest victory of all. 10 months after Brandon's final email, Natasha stood at the podium during Novatech Solutions' annual company meeting, looking out at over 100 employees. Her company had tripled in size, opened offices in 4 cities, and just completed the massive government contract 6 months ahead of schedule. I'm proud to announce that because of our early completion and exceptional performance, we've been awarded Phase 2 of the project, she said to thunderous applause. This expansion will bring another $400 million in revenue and secure jobs for everyone in this room for the next 5 years. After the meeting, Jerome approached with a huge smile. Ms. Richardson, there's a reporter from Business Monthly here. They want to interview you for their Entrepreneurs of the Year feature. The interview went well, the reporter clearly impressed by Novatech's rapid growth and Natasha's leadership. What advice would you give to other entrepreneurs facing personal hardship while building a business? the reporter asked. Don't give up, Natasha said simply. There were days I wanted to quit, days when everything seemed impossible. But I had 2 little girls depending on me, and that made giving up not an option. Every single parent, every person facing obstacles, has that same strength inside them. You just have to believe you deserve success as much as anyone else. That evening, Leonard took Natasha and the girls out to celebrate. They chose a family restaurant with a play area where Zara and Nina could be kids while the adults talked. I have something to ask you, Leonard said once the girls were occupied with an arcade game. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Natasha's heart started racing. I know we said we'd take things slow, Leonard continued, opening the box to reveal a simple but beautiful diamond ring. But I can't imagine my life without you and the girls in it. I don't want to date you anymore, Natasha. I want to build a life with you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and be there for every milestone with Zara and Nina. I want to be your partner in every sense of the word. Will you marry me? Tears streamed down Natasha's face as she nodded. Yes, absolutely yes. He slipped the ring on her finger just as Zara and Nina came running back to the table. When they saw the ring, both girls started jumping up and down with excitement. You're getting married? Zara squealed. Does this mean Leonard will live with us? Nina asked hopefully. It means we're going to be a real family, Natasha said, pulling both girls into a hug. That night, after the girls were asleep, Natasha and Leonard sat on her back porch looking at the stars. I need to tell you something, she said quietly. I got an email from Brandon's mother yesterday. Leonard tensed. What did she want? She wanted me to know that Brandon is in rehab. Apparently, his drinking got out of control after he left town. He hit rock bottom and finally checked himself into a program. How do you feel about that? Relieved that he's getting help. But also nothing. He's not my problem anymore. He's not my husband, not my responsibility, not my concern. I hope he gets better for his own sake, but it doesn't change anything for me or the girls. That's healthy, Leonard said approvingly. You've really moved on. Completely. And it feels amazing. The next few months passed in a blur of wedding planning, business growth, and family happiness. Natasha officially changed her last name to her maiden name, Richardson, erasing the last legal tie to her past marriage. She bought a bigger house with enough room for Leonard to move in after the wedding. The girls each got to design their own bedroom, and Leonard set up a home office where he could work on his research papers. Zara and Nina's annual cardiac checkups showed perfect results. I'm taking them off the monitoring list, their cardiologist said. They're completely healthy. No restrictions, no special precautions. They can do everything any other kid their age can do. Natasha cried with relief and joy. Her daughters had beaten the odds. They were whole and healthy and thriving. 3 months before the wedding, Business Monthly published their feature on Natasha. The cover photo showed her in her office, confident and professional, with the headline, From Crisis to Empire, How Natasha Richardson Built a Tech Giant While Raising Sick Children Alone. The article was shared thousands of times on social media. Natasha received interview requests from 3 national morning shows and an invitation to speak at a women's business conference. She also received messages from dozens of single mothers thanking her for showing them what was possible, for proving that they could succeed despite overwhelming odds. One message stood out. My husband left me when our son was diagnosed with leukemia. Your story gave me hope that I can survive this. Thank you. Natasha responded to as many as she could, offering encouragement and advice. She knew what it felt like to be abandoned during the hardest time of your life. If her story could help even one person feel less alone, it was worth sharing. A week later, Rochelle called with news. Girl, you're not going to believe this. Brandon saw the Business Monthly article. How do you know? Terrence saw him in Nevada. Brandon was at a bar showing everyone the article, crying, telling anyone who would listen that he used to be married to you. Natasha laughed without humor. Of course he is. Terrence said he looks terrible. Still drinking, still making bad choices. The rehab clearly didn't stick. That's sad, but it's not my problem. You've really let it all go, haven't you? Completely. I have Leonard, I have my girls, I have my business. Brandon is just someone I used to know. The wedding was small and intimate, held in the backyard of their new home with just close friends and family. Natasha wore a cream-colored dress, simple and elegant. Zara and Nina were flower girls in matching pink dresses they'd picked out themselves. When Leonard said his vows, promising to love Natasha and be a father figure to her daughters, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. I promise to show up every single day, he said, his voice thick with emotion. To be your partner in success and struggle. To love these girls like they're my own. To build a life with you that honors everything you've overcome and everything you've achieved. Natasha's vows were equally heartfelt. You taught me that partnership doesn't mean losing myself. You showed my daughters what a good man looks like. You've added so much joy to our lives. I can't wait to spend the rest of my life with you. As they kissed, sealing their marriage, Natasha felt complete peace. This was what happiness looked like. This was what she deserved. Later, during the reception, her mother pulled her aside. I'm so proud of you. You took the worst year of your life and turned it into the best thing that ever happened to you. Brandon leaving was the best thing he ever did for me, Natasha admitted. If he'd stayed, I would have spent years trying to make him happy, trying to prove my worth. Leaving me freed me to become who I was always meant to be. That night, after the guests left and the girls were asleep, Natasha and Leonard stood in their kitchen, her head resting on his shoulder. Happy? He asked. Happier than I ever thought possible. Somewhere, in another state, Brandon was living with the consequences of his choices. But here, in this house filled with love and laughter, Natasha was living proof that the best revenge wasn't getting even. It was living well. The year following the wedding brought changes that exceeded even Natasha's ambitious expectations. Novatech Solutions was recognized by the Small Business Administration as one of the fastest-growing minority-owned businesses in the country. Natasha was invited to the White House to speak on a panel about technology innovation and entrepreneurship. Leonard had moved seamlessly into family life, attending every school event, coaching Zara's soccer team, helping Nina with her science projects. The girls had started calling him Dad Leonard without anyone prompting them, and the first time Natasha heard it, she'd had to leave the room to compose herself. Is it okay that they call me that? Leonard asked her later that evening. It's more than okay. You've been more of a father to them in a year than Brandon was in their whole lives. The girls were flourishing. Zara had discovered a love for art and spent hours painting in the studio Leonard had set up for her in the garage. Nina was reading at a level 3 grades above her age and had announced she wanted to be a scientist who studied hearts, so other kids don't have to be sick like we were. Natasha's company continued to expand. She just signed contracts with 3 Fortune 500 companies and was in talks to take Novatech public within the next 2 years. Her team had grown to over 200 employees across 6 offices nationwide. One Tuesday morning, Jerome knocked on her office door with an odd expression. Ms. Richardson, there's a certified letter for you. From Nevada. Natasha's stomach dropped. She knew before opening it that it was from Brandon. The letter was brief. Natasha, I'm writing to let you know that I've completed a treatment program and I'm trying to make amends for my past actions. I know I caused you and the girls tremendous pain. I was selfish, cowardly, and wrong. I'm not asking for forgiveness or a relationship. I just want you to know that I take full responsibility for everything I did. If Zara and Nina ever want to know me, I'll be here. But I understand if that never happens. I've enclosed signed documents terminating my parental rights so you're free to move forward without any legal ties to me. I hope you and the girls have wonderful lives. You deserve it, Brandon. Natasha read it twice, then checked the attached documents. Brandon had indeed voluntarily terminated his parental rights, making it possible for Leonard to adopt the girls if they all chose that path. She called Leonard immediately. Brandon signed away his parental rights. How do you feel about that? Relieved. This makes everything clean. The girls can move forward without wondering if he'll suddenly show up and try to be a father. They can decide for themselves when they're older if they want to find him. Do you think they will? Maybe. Maybe not. But it'll be their choice, not his. That evening, she sat down with Zara and Nina to explain what had happened. She kept it simple and age-appropriate. Your birth father has decided to let go of his legal rights as your dad. That means he won't be involved in your life unless you decide someday that you want to know him. Good, Nina said firmly. We don't need him. What about Dad Leonard? Zara asked. Can he be our real dad now? Natasha looked at Leonard, who had tears in his eyes. Would you two like that? For Leonard to adopt you legally? Both girls nodded enthusiastically. Then we'll make it happen, Leonard said, his voice thick with emotion. I would be honored to be your father in every way. The adoption process took 6 months. On the day the judge finalized it, making Leonard legally the girl's father, the entire family celebrated with dinner at their favorite restaurant followed by ice cream and a movie. We're the Hayes family now, Zara announced proudly to the waitress, who smiled at their obvious happiness. Later that year, Natasha received an email from a producer at a major streaming network. They wanted to option her story for a limited series about a woman who builds an empire after her husband leaves her during a crisis. They're offering a substantial amount, the producer wrote. And you'd have creative control over how your story is told. Natasha discussed it with Leonard, who encouraged her to do it. Your story can inspire millions of people. Women who feel trapped in bad marriages, single parents struggling to survive, anyone who's been underestimated. This could matter. She negotiated a deal that gave her approval over the script and casting. Part of the proceeds would go to a foundation she was establishing to help single parents dealing with children's medical crises. The news of the deal made headlines. Business journalists praised her for leveraging her story to help others. The streaming network promoted it as an inspirational true story of resilience and success. Brandon's reaction came through Rochelle's cousin. He saw the news about the show and completely broke down. Told everyone at the rehab facility that he'd destroyed the best thing that ever happened to him. I hope he finds peace eventually, Natasha said when Rochelle told her. But that's between him and whatever help he's getting. It has nothing to do with me anymore. One Saturday afternoon, Natasha was in her home office reviewing contracts when Nina came in with a serious expression. Mom, can I ask you something? Always. Do you ever think about what life would be like if Brandon hadn't left? Natasha considered the question carefully. Sometimes. But honestly, I think if he'd stayed, I would have spent years trying to fix a marriage that was already broken. I would have made myself smaller to make him feel bigger. I would have taught you and Zara that you should accept less than you deserve. So him leaving was good? Him leaving was hard. The hardest thing I've ever been through. But what came after was good. What we have now is good. Sometimes the worst thing that happens to you clears the way for the best things to come. Nina nodded thoughtfully. I'm glad he left then. Because I like our family now. Me too, baby. Me too. That evening, Leonard found Natasha on the back porch watching the sunset. He handed her a glass of wine and sat down beside her. Do you know what I love most about you? He asked. What? You never play the victim. Everything you've been through, you could have used it as an excuse to give up or to be bitter. Instead, you used it as fuel to become extraordinary. I had good reasons to keep going, she said, gesturing toward the house where they could hear the girls laughing. They're lucky to have you. We all are. As the sun set, painting the sky in brilliant colors, Natasha reflected on how far she'd come. 3 years ago, she'd been drowning. Sick children, failing marriage, struggling business, no hope in sight. Now her daughters were healthy and happy. Her company was valued at over $500 million. She was married to a man who genuinely loved and supported her. She was using her platform to help others facing similar struggles. Brandon had thought leaving her would be his ticket to something better. Instead, he'd given her the freedom to become everything she was capable of being. The best revenge she'd learned wasn't making him suffer. It was building a life so beautiful, so fulfilling, so successful that his absence didn't leave a hole. It left space for something better to grow. 3 years and 4 months after Brandon had left divorce papers on her kitchen counter, Natasha stood in the main conference room of Novatech Solutions headquarters, surrounded by her senior leadership team and the board of directors. On the screen behind her, stock market numbers climbed steadily. Novatech Solutions had just gone public, and the IPO had exceeded all projections. The company was now valued at $1.2 billion, making Natasha one of the youngest self-made female billionaires in the tech sector. We did it, she told her team, her voice filled with genuine emotion. We built something that matters. Something that creates jobs, solves problems, and changes lives. Thank you all for believing in this vision. The applause was deafening. Many of her employees had been with her from the beginning, had watched her build an empire from nothing while raising 2 sick children alone. They knew what this moment meant. Later that evening, there was a celebration at a downtown hotel ballroom. 500 guests, including business partners, employees, investors, and friends. Rochelle was there with her new husband. Diane was there, elegant in a silver dress, beaming with pride. Leonard and the girls arrived fashionably late, the twins now 10 years old and strikingly beautiful in their matching red dresses. They'd grown tall and confident, their health issues a distant memory. Congrats, Mom, Zara said, hugging her tightly. You're officially a big deal now. She was always a big deal, Nina corrected. Now everyone else knows it. Leonard kissed Natasha softly. How does it feel? Surreal. 3 years ago, I was wondering how I'd pay for the girl's surgery. Now I'm a billionaire. It doesn't feel real. You earned every bit of it. As the party continued, Natasha stepped outside onto a balcony overlooking the city. Below, lights twinkled like stars, and she could hear the distant sounds of traffic and life continuing. There you are. Her mother joined her, wrapping a shawl around Natasha's shoulders against the cool evening air. Needed a moment? Just taking it all in. You should be proud. Look at everything you've built. I keep thinking about that day, Natasha admitted. The day I came home to those divorce papers. I felt like my life was ending. I couldn't see past the pain and fear. And now I realize that was the day my life actually began. Brandon leaving forced me to stand on my own, to believe in myself, to stop shrinking to make someone else comfortable. If he'd stayed, I might never have become this person. Diane smiled. I'm glad you see it that way. Because that man did you the biggest favor of your life when he walked out that door. Inside, Leonard was showing Zara and Nina pictures on his phone of the vacation they were planning. 2 weeks in Europe over the summer, visiting museums and historical sites. Can we really go to Paris? Nina asked, her eyes wide. Anywhere you want, Leonard assured her. Your mom works hard to give you opportunities. We're going to explore the world together. The party wound down around midnight. As they drove home, the girls fell asleep in the back seat, exhausted from excitement. Leonard drove while Natasha rested her head against the window, watching the city pass by. What are you thinking about? Leonard asked quietly. How grateful I am. For you, for the girls, for all of this. And how none of it would exist if Brandon hadn't left. Do you ever wonder what he's doing now? Not really. Rochelle told me he's still in Nevada working at some call center. Apparently he's sober now and doing better, but he's still living a very small life. Part of me hopes he finds happiness eventually, but mostly I just don't think about him at all. That's the healthiest thing you've said. They arrived home and carried the sleeping girls inside, tucking them into their beds. Natasha paused in each daughter's doorway, watching them sleep peacefully, their faces relaxed and content. These girls had been through so much: illness, surgery, abandonment by their father. And yet they'd emerged strong and kind and resilient. They'd learned that love wasn't about who shares your DNA but about who shows up when things are hard. The next morning, Natasha woke early and went to her home office. Sitting on her desk was a letter that had arrived the day before. She'd been too busy with the IPO to open it. The return address was from a rehab facility in Nevada. Inside was a single page in Brandon's handwriting. Natasha, I saw the news about your company going public. Congratulations. I mean that sincerely. I've been sober for 8 months now and working with a therapist to understand why I made the choices I made. I know this doesn't change anything and I'm not asking for forgiveness. I just want you to know that I understand now what I threw away. You were always extraordinary. I was just too insecure to let you shine. I destroyed my family because I couldn't handle not being the star. That's on me, not you. I hope the girls are well. I hope they never know how badly their father failed them. You've given them a life I never could have provided, and for that, I'm grateful. Be happy, Natasha. You've earned it 1,000 times over. Brandon. Natasha read it once, then placed it in a drawer. She felt no anger, no satisfaction, no pain. Just a distant acknowledgement that Brandon had finally understood what he'd lost. But his understanding changed nothing. She'd built her empire without him. She'd raised their daughters without him. She'd found love and happiness and success without him. His regret was his to carry, not hers. Leonard appeared in the doorway with coffee. Everything okay? Everything's perfect, she said honestly. I was just thinking about how far we've come. We've come far. But you've come furthest. From someone's ex-wife to one of the most successful entrepreneurs in the country. From single mother struggling to survive to a woman who's changing the industry. You did that, Natasha. Not luck, not circumstances. You. She stood and wrapped her arms around him. I had help. From you, from Mom, from Rochelle, from people who believed in me when I didn't believe in myself. But you did the work. You made the hard choices. You refused to give up. Later that day, Natasha received a call from the producer working on her television series. We've cast the lead role. She's perfect, strong but vulnerable, determined but human. I think you're going to love how we've adapted your story. When does filming start? Next month. And the network wants to do a documentary to accompany the series. Where you are now, how you built the business, interviews with your team and family. Are you interested? Let me think about it. That evening, the family gathered for dinner. It was Sunday, their traditional family night where everyone shared their highs and lows from the week. My high was scoring 3 goals in soccer, Zara announced. My high was getting 100% on my science test, Nina added. My high was watching your mother become a billionaire, Leonard said with a grin. Everyone looked at Natasha. My high is this, she said simply. This table, this family, this life. All of it. After dinner, as they cleaned up together, Natasha's phone buzzed with a notification. Another interview request, this one from a major business magazine wanting to feature her as one of their women who changed business. She accepted, knowing that every interview, every article, every appearance gave her a platform to inspire other women facing impossible situations. If her story could help even one person believe they could overcome their circumstances, it was worth telling. That night, after everyone was asleep, Natasha walked through her house, looking at the life she'd built. Photos of the girls at various ages covered the walls. Leonard's medical journals sat stacked on the coffee table. Zara's paintings hung in the hallway. Nina's science fair trophies lined a shelf. This house was filled with love and laughter and hope. Everything she'd ever wanted but never had with Brandon. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 years ago, broken, scared, unsure if she could survive losing her marriage and saving her children simultaneously. That woman had felt like she was drowning, like success was impossible, like she'd never be happy again. How wrong she'd been. Brandon had thought he was leaving a sinking ship. He'd thought Simone and her established success would give him the life he wanted. He'd thought Natasha would struggle forever while he thrived. Instead, he jumped ship right before it became a yacht. He'd traded a wife who was about to become a billionaire for a woman whose company collapsed within months. He'd abandoned daughters who grew up healthy and happy, achieving more than he ever would. And Natasha had proven that the best revenge wasn't plotting or scheming or trying to make him hurt the way he'd hurt her. The best revenge was living so well that his absence became a blessing instead of a loss. As she returned to bed, Leonard stirred. Can't sleep? Just thinking about how grateful I am. For all of this. For you. I'm the grateful one. I got to watch you transform from someone surviving to someone thriving. Not everyone gets to witness that kind of strength. Natasha settled into his arms, feeling completely at peace. Somewhere out there, Brandon was living with his regrets, finally understanding what he'd thrown away. She hoped he found peace eventually, but his journey was no longer her concern. She'd moved on. She'd risen up. She'd built an empire from the ashes of her broken marriage. And in doing so, she taught her daughters the most valuable lesson of all. You don't need someone else to validate your worth. You don't need a man to complete you. You don't need anyone's permission to be extraordinary. You just need to believe you deserve success as much as anyone else, and then work until that belief becomes reality. Brandon's loss had been her liberation. His abandonment had been her awakening. His departure had cleared the way for her greatest victories. 3 years ago, he'd left her thinking she had nothing. Today she had everything. And that, more than anything else, was the sweetest victory of all.